All right. Well, thank you, everybody. I'm going to pass it on over to Dr. Linda Anderson.
Good morning, everybody. I am happy to be here with you all. This is one of my favorite topics, talking about mindfulness. We have had, like Krista mentioned a little bit ago that when the Minot team first started these echoes, that we were involved at the beginning and helped develop some of the topics. And this is one of the ones that I've been talking about with Echo, but we also have in Minnesota, for people who work in self-directed programs, have been doing this, a 2-hour version of this training for people who work on self-directed programs who are employed directly by people with disabilities. And so we have been doing this for a while, and I figured out what people find interesting and what they don't. And so hopefully you'll find this useful. And so we're just going to talk a little about coping with stress and how mindfulness activities can help with that, and what mindfulness does for our bodies and what that means. Mindfulness means it's not necessarily meditation, although that is one way to be mindful. One of the things that I have added to this in the past year when I've been teaching this is talk a little bit about toxic positivity, because it has started to feel to me that wellness has become kind of a competitive sport. And so it really isn't meant to be that we need to take care of ourselves, and whatever works for us, then we don't have to do all these things and do it perfectly. And also this whole thing about we always have to be positive and everything has to be hunky-dory and isn't helpful. That we all our emotions are valid. We could hold multiple emotions at the same time, that we all need support. We all need to be supportive, and just telling people to buck up and smile and be okay isn't necessarily always helpful. So what that ends up happening is we brush off problems, we hide behind quotes, we minimize people's discomfort, or other people's feelings, and our own feelings, because it's uncomfortable to talk about feelings. And then sometimes people even get into kind of shaming and blaming other people if they don't have a positive attitude, which just adds to people's stress. So I started talking about this now because I don't want to feed into that. What I'm offering today are suggestions that may work for you, that may not. Take what you can find useful, and if nothing is, don't worry about the ones that don't. None of these are prescriptive. They're just ideas that work for some people, and hopefully they will for you. So we're just going to start with a little practice that works, that's quick. You can do it in just a few minutes. It works really well with the people that I supported, which has been mainly people with intellectual disabilities, because it's pretty easy to do, and it can help people kind of feel a little less stressed. And if you practice this when people are feeling calm, then when people start feeling anxious about something, you can walk through this with them. Grounding is a really powerful technique. It's easy. It helps bring people back to the present. It brings people to the here and now. It decreases stress in the moment. It kind of can get your mind off the spinning around that brings you to being anxious, and then so it can focus on what needs to get done next. So just get comfortable. So however works for you, keep your eyes open, close your eyes. I would then like you to take a couple of deep breaths where you really fill your belly with air, kind of breathe in slowly, breathe out slowly a couple of times. I want you to think about 5 things that you can see. 4 things that you can feel. 3 things that you can hear. 2 things that you can smell. And 1 thing that you can taste. Take in another deep breath and blow out that air. All right. Hopefully that you can see how that can make people feel relaxed, and it's a really simple thing to do that doesn't take very long. When we're talking about the stress that people who work in direct support or direct care roles experience. There's a lot of reasons for it. Often it's a job where we don't have a lot of control. Things come up that we weren't expecting when we planned our workday. The people we're supporting have things happen that we hadn't planned on, and it's not a job that's really predictable, which can add to people's stress. Sometimes there's unclear job expectations, particularly if you have people who are providing supports in people's homes, that sometimes people don't communicate or have difficulties communicating what kind of support they want or need. Sometimes people, particularly with the workforce shortage, maybe don't get as much training as they used to when we had less urgency to get positions filled. There's a lot of things about this job, just because we're working with humans, that we don't always have a set idea of what's going to happen. There's extremes of activity. There can be times that are really kind of chill, maybe just providing some social interaction with people. Then there's times where there can be extreme activity. It can be a very physically demanding job. It can be a very emotionally demanding job. And sometimes you don't know when those extremes are going to happen. There can be a lack of social support, particularly for people who work in more isolated settings, if they're supporting people in their own home, if they're supporting people who maybe they work on a shift where there's not a lot of other support. There's the social support that we can sometimes get from our peers at work isn't necessarily always as available to this workforce. It can be a challenge to have work-life balance. It's oftentimes people, I feel like now the percentage is going to escape me, but a significant number of people who work in direct support work roles work more than one job. And many of them also are single parents. Managing all of that is a challenge. And of course, every job has workplace dynamics, and for some people manage those really well. Some people find them really stressful. Some workplaces are just a joy to work for, and some are a little less so. And that's the way work is. I'm going to share a video that we have created for direct care workers about stress. We couldn't find any out there, and so we have talented graphic designers, and you're the first people to see this, so I'll be interested in what you think about it. That talks about stress in relation to being in the role of providing support to somebody else, and how that affects our bodies. And so hopefully, fingers crossed, this works.
Direct support work can be challenging and demanding. It can cause direct support workers stress. This stress affects physical, emotional, and/or mental well-being. Some of the common causes of stress for caregivers include providing support that may be demanding, adapting to challenging circumstances and dealing with unexpected situations. This may lead to feelings of helplessness or frustration. Working in an underpaid profession. This may lead to stress related to finances. Experiencing a range of emotions. They may feel guilt, anger, frustration, and sadness. Feeling isolated, especially if they do not have a strong support system. Neglecting their own health while supporting others, leading to health issues like fatigue, sleep problems, and chronic illness. Struggling with balancing their work with other responsibilities in life, making them feel overwhelmed. Stress is a natural response of the body to a challenging situation or event. When a person experiences stress, the body releases hormones. Adrenaline and cortisol trigger a fight or flight response. Stress can be beneficial in certain situations. It can help a person stay focused and alert. However, prolonged and/or chronic stress can have harmful effects on the body. Some of these effects include an increase in blood pressure. Stress increases adrenaline and cortisol. This makes the heart beat faster and blood vessels constrict. Muscle tension and stiffness, particularly in the neck, shoulders, and back. Digestive issues such as stomach cramps, diarrhea, and constipation. Stress can also trigger headaches and migraines. Increased susceptibility to illness and infection, as ongoing stress can suppress immune systems. disrupted sleep patterns such as difficulty falling asleep or staying asleep. Prolonged stress can lead to fatigue and exhaustion. It is important for caregivers to recognize and manage their stress. Managing stress is crucial for maintaining good physical, emotional, and mental health. To manage stress, embrace physical activity. Physical activity reduces stress levels and improves well-being. Going on a walk or run, practicing yoga, or playing a sport are great ways to be more physically active. Direct support workers should find something that works for them. Relax intentionally. Deep breathing, meditation, and progressive muscle relaxation can help reduce stress. Prioritize sleep. Aim for 7 to 8 hours of sleep each night to help the body and mind recharge. Eat a balanced diet. A diet including plenty of fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and lean protein will support good physical and mental health. Participate in activities that are important to you. Visit with family and friends. Take part in activities with others that share an interest. Spend time alone if you need to. Doing the things that bring you joy reduces stress and improves well-being. Learn to say no. Setting boundaries can help reduce stress and prevent burnout. Use a strategy to manage tasks. Learn to prioritize, delegate, and break down large projects into smaller tasks. Doing this can help manage stress related to work and other responsibilities. Join a support group or find a mental health professional. For some, it is good to seek professional help to improve their well-being. It is important to remember that what works for one person may not work for another. Experiment with different strategies. Then you can find what works best for you in managing stress and plan your journey to wellness.
All right. We're going to talk a little bit about now how we address our perceived stress. And I use the word perceived on purpose, that different situations cause different people different amounts of stress. So what might be really stressful for you may not bother me at all. Some people have more natural resilience to stressful situations and may just feel less stressed overall than other people. And so really, stress is something that we feel differently about different situations, and so is perceived. It's real, but how we feel it and how we experience it is different for each and every one of us. Lena Horne has a great quote about stress. It's not the load that breaks you down, it's the way you carry it. And so how we think about how we manage the things that cause us stress, how we deal with it when we're feeling stressed out can really make a difference in our ability to manage all that without having hopefully managing it so we have fewer of the long-term effects of feeling stress. I didn't say this at the beginning, I should just think I have COVID, and it gives me brain fog, and I'm on drugs so I don't cough through the whole thing. So I'm sorry if I'm not exactly like the clearest speaker. I'm trying really hard to not stumble over my words all the time. And I also have this little box up here that I need to make go away. So to manage stress and to be resilient, we need to leave something in the well. We need to take care of ourselves and make sure that our bucket is full before we can help other people. And so I just want you to take a minute and think about what fulfills you, and what depletes you, and what can help you leave something in reserve. And then if you want to share, a few people want to share, that would be great. You can put it in chat and we can read that out, or you just want to unmute yourself and offer your suggestions. That would be great. And so let's just take a minute and think about those 3 questions. Does anybody have anything that they want to anything that they want to offer up about what fulfills you? How can you leave something in the well and reserve for yourself? So Elizabeth said that family time reading books and being in nature fulfills her. Deanna also enjoys hiking nature and hiking. If any of you were on yet when you saw the very beginning picture of my slideshow, it was nature, but nature is also something that I find very fulfilling. Negative energy depletes Elizabeth. All right, well, if anybody else comes up with an idea they want to suggest, you can go ahead and throw it in chat. And then now we're going to talk a little bit about mindfulness. Mindfulness is a training that supports us living with presence, awareness, and compassion. It helps us understand. It can be understood as a training and intention. So we're being intentional about what we do, how we think, how we respond. And being intentional is about what mindfulness is all about. And if you think about, when I think about inattention, one of the examples that I always come up with, because it happens to me more than I like to admit, is I'll get home from work and not remember the drive at all. So completely not intentional about my drive home, which probably isn't a good thing, but it's possible that other people have experienced that too. You've just gone that road so many times that you're just not at all focused on it. And then you get home and be like, oh my gosh, I'm home. When did that happen? But there's other things that I'm sure we all have examples of living life without intention, and where did the day go? And I don't remember doing anything, whatever I did today. And so really mindfulness is about being more present and being focused on the people we're supporting and our coworkers, and then making sure that we're living life. And I wish I should have saved it. I was reading an article this morning about aging. Oh no, I was reading about a Stoic philosopher, but the point of it was that a lot of us, as we get older, we go through life without being mindful and intentional. And when we get to the end, really all we have to show for it is like the number of years that we've obtained, and we haven't actually lived life. And maybe that's what sort of being intentional mindfulness is. It's like sort of living our life and being present and experiencing it, so that when we get to 80, the only thing we don't have to show for it is being 80, that we've had opportunities to make memories and experience things. Even if you can do that wherever you are, you don't have to travel the world to have that. You can just do it in your backyard. So the benefits of mindfulness are from research, and I'm going to give you a website at the end that has a link to a research center in Berkeley that spends a lot of time on this and does a research with MRI scans and measures the stress hormones, and they really do a lot of research, and this is really fascinating research. We can be more patient. It teaches us to be patient, can give us better focus and productivity, especially if we're mindful about the things that distract us, like social media, and planning our time so maybe we don't get fewer interruptions. It can make us more compassionate towards ourselves and other people, and drop some of the judgment. I think particularly for ourselves, I think a lot of us are a lot harder on ourselves than we are on other people, and learning to be compassionate towards ourselves is hard to do, but it can be very helpful. It can help us have heightened body awareness, and so we can listen to our bodies to figure out what we actually need. If you do, we'll talk about a body scan in a little later. If you do those, sometimes you feel you can feel where your body's holding stress, and I can tell you it's been a stressful month. And right here is where I'm holding stress right now, and I can feel it every morning when I get up and I need to do something about it. But the understanding that where your body holds stress can help you figure out what to do to manage it, and then finally being mindful, just make sure overall we have less stress and anxiety. And the interesting thing about doing these things is we can rewire our brains. Our brains are plastic, and so as we practice some of these things, we can teach our brains to manage stress better just over time. There's I'm going to take 1 minute to talk about that research, because it's super fascinating. They did studies with monks, actually. So there's a person who's a monk from France. He became a Buddhist monk, and his dad's a neuroscientist, and they worked together on these studies where they did brain scans and MRIs and other things with people who are long-term meditators. And he brought in the knowledge of the meditation, and his dad brought in the knowledge of the neuroscience, and the things they wrote together are absolutely fascinating. So if you're really into that kind of stuff, it's really, really an interesting collaboration that they did. There we go. So there's some different mindfulness practices, and I usually say this up front, just because there's a wide range of people who provide drug support workers, and we have a wide range of beliefs, is that mindfulness practices don't necessarily mean yoga or meditation, which can be things that for some people's religious beliefs are really uncomfortable. Prayer is a kind of mindfulness practice. Journaling is a mindfulness practice. It really is about bringing ourselves to the present and paying attention to what we're doing and what we're feeling and how we're interacting with people. So if things like yoga and meditation are things like, oh, that doesn't work for me for whatever reason, that's not what we're talking about. They fit into this. If it's something you love to do, you should do it, but it's not the whole story. And so I got called out really early on when I first started doing this training about somebody who was uncomfortable with some of the things I was talking about. And so I thought I had to rethink this a little bit, and that there's lots of ways to be mindful within your belief system that are still helpful, you don't have to do something that's uncomfortable for you. So visualization, this is my sister's favorite mindfulness practice. She's really good at visualizing things, and she just goes on vacation to her favorite place for 5 or 10 minutes. And when she's really having a stressful day at work, and I don't visualize well, so this one wouldn't work for me, but she loves Disney. So she goes to Disneyland for 5 or 10 minutes when she's really, really stressed out, and it really helps her. Deep breathing, and we're going to do some breathing practices a little later. The interesting thing about breathing, when we deep breathe, it affects our vagus nerve, which is the nerve that runs all the way from our brain down to our digestive system, and it affects a lot of the body's processes that we have no control over, but it also helps reduce stress. So if you can do that deep breathing and calm down the vagus nerve, lots of other things calm down our heart rate and other things, and so it's really, really helpful for that. Exercising is a great mindfulness practice, particularly activities that are repetitive. So biking, where you're doing the same motion over and over again, or walking or running, but any exercise really it reduces the cortisol and increases the hormones like endorphins that make us feel good. So whatever exercise you like to do is the right exercise to do. Prayer or reflection as a mindfulness practice. Logic can be a mindfulness practice in that it makes us focus and be mindful. So for example, doing Sudokus or crosswords or things like that, where we have to take our brains and use them in some sort of activity that's happening right there and now, and we have to really focus on it, can take us away from those anxiety thoughts and can kind of fit into this practice of being present and intentional. Journaling. And there's a website that's in the resource slide at the end about how to do a mindfulness journal, if that's something that interests you. And being creative is also mindfulness. If any of you have a creative activity and you really get going on it, and you kind of get into they call it the flow, where you just are really focused on it and you lose track of time, that's a great mindfulness practice. You're being intentional, you're focused on something. It is also really helpful as a mindfulness practice. And that could be all sorts of things: singing, playing instruments, creating art, sewing, whatever kind of practice thing that you like to do. Some of us aren't great at sitting still. So I'm not a meditator. The thought of sitting like on a cushion or a chair meditating for like long periods of time, it's not going to relax me. I'm going to be really stressed out. So mindful walking, and that is especially for people like nature, take 10 minutes, like when you go hiking, so we want to get through the hike and we're, really just walk really slowly and listen to the sounds and see what smells you can smell. What are you hearing? Feel your feet on the ground, and you can do that anywhere. You can do it in your neighborhood, you can do it in your backyard. Some some communities, and I know there's all over that, you have to place to Google it. They have they're not mazes, but they're, I can't remember the word, but it's a circular path you can walk and then walk back out. You can do walk that, kind of walk this into the circle and then walk back out and really slowly. And I can't think of the word now, but maybe somebody knows it. Mindful chores. So Thich Nhat Hanh was a Vietnamese monk who talked about that everything we do can be mindful. And so brushing your teeth can be mindful if you really think about it. And so for me, I love doing dishes by hand because for me, this is a mindful activity. The warm soapy water, I find a dish detergent that I like the smell of. My family leaves me alone because they don't want to do dishes. And I could just, focus on washing the dishes and not worry about everything else that's happened that day. So that's an example of a mindful chore. The mindfulness, there's all kinds of mindful activities for all audiences that if you Google things, there's things you can do with kids. There's really simple things you can teach the people you support. And I think we talked about being creative as a way of being mindful. So we're going to do this for a minute. This also doesn't take very long. It's called the Stop Body Scan. And if you're feeling a little stressed out, this can help you figure out what your body needs at the moment. And it can only take a minute. And so let's just do this for a minute. Just stop again, close your eyes, open your eyes, whatever works for you. It helps if you sit comfortably. So put your feet on the floor, kind of find a relaxed posture. And then just take a really deep breath and think about your breath flowing in and out. All right, now just run through your body. So to start with your feet and move your way up. So your feet and your ankles and your knees. You feel anything in your body? Are you feeling tense anywhere? Are you feeling hungry or thirsty? Do you have any aches, pains? What are you feeling or thinking? Just notice them and let them go. No judgment on any of them. Are you tired? Do you need something to eat? Are you feeling sad or angry or happy, relaxed? And then the P in stop is proceed. With something that will be helpful for you to address the particular stress you're feeling in the moment. Maybe you need a stretch. Maybe you need to take a quick walk around the office. Maybe you forgot to eat lunch and having something to eat would be helpful. Maybe you need to make plans to have a good conversation with a friend. And so if you're feeling stressed and you really can't figure out like what to do about it, sometimes this can help even in the moment. There may be bigger things of stress that this won't help solve the big problem, but this can help in the moment to kind of take care of some of the things that are more immediate, and then can help you move on for the next thing you need to do. Right. So breathing is a really important part of managing stress. Then there's different ways that you can breathe to do this. Our breathing is really important. Sometimes when we get stressed, we do that shallow breathing where it's like really in our shoulders and our chest, and it's not the deep breathing. And if we really want to manage stress, it's really important to like breathe where it's going down into our diaphragm and our belly expands as opposed to doing it all up here. One of the things that is related to the vagus nerve and our body's physiology and anatomy is the slower you breathe, the slower our heart rate will be. So when we get stressed or feeling anxious, our heart rate beats faster. And so if we can slow down our breathing, we can also slow down our heart rate, which can help feel less anxious and stressed. And these are things you can do anywhere, anytime. You don't have to stop what you're doing to do these in particularly. So I was just paying attention to your inhales and your exhales. I know for example, for myself, that if I'm feeling really stressed and I start paying attention to my breath, I kind of notice that I'm not necessarily breathing. Like I hold my breath a lot when I'm stressed, which isn't helpful. And so just even that, oh my gosh, I'm like holding my breath, or I'm breathing really fast and shallow, and I should do this. a really simple thing to do is just count your breathing. So 1, 2, and like go to 10 and start over. That is one that works to teach people that you support if they get anxious. And practice these things when they're not anxious. That just let's count our breaths, and that can help people. An breathing technique that takes a little more practice, especially if you haven't been doing things like this, because you might feel a little dizzy to start, but you get over it, it goes away. Is you breathe in for a count of 4 or 4 seconds, and you hold it for a count of 7, and then you breathe out for a count of 8, and you do that for several cycles. That can help manage anxiety. Can also help if you're having trouble falling asleep to try that. So it's a really good breathing technique for managing anxiety. And then the other thing that is helpful, and sometimes it's a good step to do box breathing before you do like the 4, 7, 8, is that you just breathe in and hold your breath and breathe out for equal counts. So like maybe breathe in for 4, hold for 4, breathe out for 4, do that for several cycles. And that can also help if you're having trouble focusing. That might also help that a little bit. The interesting thing with these is that I just didn't make these up. These all have some research behind them where people have done these and measured stress hormone levels and things like that. So there's actually most of the things that I talk about today, I can try to pull from research, and then I'm just not throwing things up, that there actually is some evidence behind these things for being helpful for people. These are some apps that we have discovered over time doing this training and that people have suggested to us. There's one on here that called Calm that I'm trying right now that I actually like quite a bit. So Headspace is, they have some free meditation lessons. And then you can buy into the app that if you want more things. Calm is the same way. There's some free things and you can buy. And the thing I like about Calm is they have a lot of kind of relaxing sounds and music, which I kind of like. Headspace, if you have problems falling asleep and have Netflix, has a series on Netflix about insomnia and how to deal with that. Journey is if you like journaling, you could try that one. These other two are just kind of meditation ones. Virtual Hope Box is a really interesting app that I recommend a lot to people who really want to have trauma or a lot of stress and anxiety that they want to manage. It was developed by the Defense Department actually for members of the military who were returning from overseas who had PTSD. And so it has several categories of things within it, and it's free, which makes it really nice too. Is it has some meditation and breathing activities. It has sort of those logic games that I talked about. It has some guided visualizations, and then it has a couple of options where you can upload music that you like that makes you feel calmer. And it has the places you can put in images and photos and quotes and things that are meaningful to you. And so it's a really great tool that has a lot of different options that cover a lot of different ways to think about managing stress that work for different people. Really, it's been tested. There's like, it's been studied. It's been effective in helping people who are trying to manage coping with trauma and things who have high levels of post-traumatic stress and other things. So it's a really great tool. I think I had the link in the on the last page. And these are the resources that I did want to share. And I'm going to go to this website. Hopefully it'll open. So there's the mindful journaling. SAMHSA has great mental health supports. Always, if things are just too much, therapy is always a great option if you're able to afford that and get that. It's always good, helpful for people. The University of Minnesota has 2 resources that are free. One happens on Mondays at noon and one happens at Thursdays at 8 o'clock in the morning. And it's a whole hour of sort of mindfulness practice webinars. And so the Thursday morning one is meditation. And so if you like the idea of meditation, that is one you might want to check out. And the one on Mondays has different activities. So they have yoga, they have chair yoga, and they kind of rotate on Mondays. Somebody does qigong, tai chi kind of, so it's like a movement kind of thing, and somebody does chair yoga, somebody does lying down yoga. I don't know what else, they've got a bunch of others. The thing is, these are free, and if you sign up, you can watch the videos on your own time. You don't have to participate when they do the live ones, which is helpful if you have a really busy schedule. And it's just kind of fun to check out. I do the Monday ones more because there's a couple of instructors that I kind of really liked and kind of connect with. And so, and I like the movie ones. So that's a great resource to check out. And then I wanted to go to this Berkeley Center. Do we have time, Krista, to look at the Berkeley website?
Yes, we do.
Okay. So this is the place that I was talking about that does all the research. I might have to stop share and share again so you can see this. They do all kinds of research related to mental health and wellness. And so if you're interested in a particular topic, so let's just pick self-compassion, because I talked a little earlier. They will have short activities that you can do about thinking about compassion. So like this is a really quick activity that might take a minute. So do you treat yourself like you treat your friends? You know, most of us would probably say, I never talk to friends the way I talk to myself. You can, they're doing research now in awe, which I find really fascinating, especially for people who like nature, is that having experiences where we feel awe. It's like if you go to like that beautiful place in nature that you really love, and you just like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. It actually is good for your brain, and it helps your mental health, and it helps release stress. So it's kind of newer research, but it really fascinates me, worth looking into. But they have pretty much everything that you can think of. Gratitude, if you want to do gratitude journals, if you want to think about how to be more resilient to stress, all these things. And they just have a whole team of people who research this stuff and do it, really looking at how it's affecting our body's physiology, so our stress hormones and how our brain is reacting and stuff. So it's really, really interesting things. And they have all kinds of free resources. And if you're really, 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 really want to get into it, they have also kind of extended paid classes. So how do you be a better teacher and do these things? So it's a great resource. I like to share it with people because it's free, and free is always good. Other than that, I think that is the end of my presentation. I'm happy to take questions. And then I think the only thing I wanted to talk about, because I excuse me, the cold medicine thing is going to wear off now. Because I did direct support. So I provided direct support for so long to people. And we used to support my mother-in-law when she had dementia, is to think about if there's ways you can work this into, it's a little harder, depending on the people you support, but to teach some of these things that are really simple to the people you support when they're not feeling stressed out and anxious, so that when they're feeling stressed out and anxious, you can bring them, help them remind these with things. And so one of the things that it seems silly, but it works really well. And it fits with my philosophy that adults take things way too seriously, and we need to learn to have more fun in life. But blowing bubbles is a really great activity, because the air, the breathing pattern you need to make a bubble is also a really good breathing pattern for reducing stress. And so if you have people blow bubbles, first of all, it's fun, and who doesn't like to have fun? But second of all, that breathing pattern is one that's really helpful for reducing stress. And so if people blow bubbles when they're feeling stressed out, it helps for lots of reasons. And the other thing, depending on sort of the age of the people you're working with and kind of how you feel about, age appropriate things. But if you try to teach people how to deep breathe and do the belly breathing, if you put like a stuffed animal on their stomach so they can see that going up and down, that's how they learn, like they can visualize it. If you don't use a pillow or something, if a stuffed animal makes you don't want to do that. So those are some things. And then I read there was a program out east that was working with adults with intellectual disabilities who had significant behavior challenges. And they were trying to figure out a way to teach them to be mindful that wasn't triggering for somebody, and what they ended up coming up with. And it's sort of simple, and it's simple. It's simple, and it really worked for them. Was when people were feeling anxious, is they had them focus on the bottoms of their feet and what the bottoms of their feet were feeling. And first, like, nobody has ever had trauma. I mean, nobody that they worked with ever had sort of really traumatic experiences related with the bottoms of their feet, apparently, that nobody got upset about this. And so it was really fascinating, but it's like really concrete. Like, do you feel the rug under your feet? Like, what does that feel like? And so there's this kind of ways to be creative. And then if the people that you're working with are feeling less anxious, then that'll also help you feel less anxious because your workday will go easier. So that's just another thing that we talk about and try and implement when I was doing direct support work too, that these are things that are good for everybody to know. So if we can figure out simple ways to teach them to people we support, it's also helpful for them. So that's my little soapbox for the moment. Any questions? Krista will have the slides. She's going to put into PDF, so you'll have all those links. And I'm happy to answer questions or find other resources. If people want more resources about this thing, I can send it on.
I will say, the first time that you did this presentation, and I learned about the science of awe, I was almost like in awe or learning about the science of awe, because I was taking a program evaluation class and just learning about how difficult it is to like measure outcomes and, proving that the work that you're doing is doing what you say it's going to do. And so when I was reading about that and found that some humans were able to conceptualize and measure like feelings of awe, like it was mind blowing. So I really appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, I found it fascinating. I mean, it was, so Shannon has done laughter yoga before. So we did that with the wellness class that I did with adults with intellectual disabilities. One of the participants and his mom had actually done the laughter training yoga. And so they did a session for us. It was so much fun. We all were looking at him when we first started, like, this is ridiculous. What are we doing here? By the end of it, like, people were crying from, it was so much fun, like, completely do it. If you ever have a chance to do it, it's absolutely, it was great. We all just left there, I think, feeling about just like floating on clouds, about 20 pounds lighter than we came in. It was amazing. Michelle said that her grandma dealt with vagus nerve in dramatic ways. Oh, my gosh, that sounds really scary, Michelle. Oh my gosh. All right.
Okay, guys, now we're gonna go into the case presentation. The purpose of these case presenters are sharing people's stories of lived experience, and what we're hoping to do with these is we're hoping to destigmatize talking about mental health. We're hoping to give examples of the resilient context in action. And what we really want to do is help create a safe environment for participants to ask questions. Just a trigger warning before we get started. This presentation contains emotionally triggering topics around suicide and grief. This content may be difficult for some participants, and we care about your comfort and well-being. Please feel free to log off if you guys need. A recording of the presentation will be sent out for later viewing. 988 is designated as the new number for the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. With that being said, let's get to our case presenter today. Her name is Krista Opstall. And take it away, Krista.
I feel like we ended Linda's presentation on such a high note, so I apologize. We're going to kind of put you guys through a little bit of a emotional roller coaster today. When we started this series, I think I've told you guys that the leadership sessions were different from the direct care professional sessions, where this implementation, we've pushed them together and we decided to give a platform to people with lived experience to share their mental health stories, because we didn't think that we would get case presentations from direct care professionals, because that would mean like them talking about themselves or their coworkers, which just didn't seem appropriate. So, and as I was looking for people to come and tell their story, I realized how much I was asking of people to be vulnerable. And so I decided that it was probably appropriate for me to lead by example and share my story, since I was asking people to do something that was really vulnerable. So my mental health story began in 2018. My grandpa had passed away, and we have a really close family. My mom is an only child, so my grandparents have helped raise me. And it was the first time that I've ever dealt with like a close family death. And it was also the first time I've ever planned a funeral. So during that time, I was just very overly analytical, like trying to understand like the reasons why are we doing this? Like, why do we embalm people, and just researching basically like why are we doing these practices. And my dad was like my biggest rock at the time, because he would listen to me and he had a lot of similar views on things, and he just helped me process it. Well, 6 months later, my dad died by suicide at the age of like 51. So not only was I dealing with the passing of my grandpa, which was difficult, but kind of an expectation at that point of life, I now had to deal with my dad passing. And it's hard to paint a picture of what life looked like, because I was basically a shell of myself. Every day was like Groundhog's Day. I would get up, I would get my kids ready, drop them off at school, drive to work, think about all the things that I could have done and said in those moments to possibly stop the outcome that happened. Often thought about driving my car into the nearest tree or light pole, and then I would pull up into my work parking lot and then walk into the building and pretend like nothing ever happened, and that this wasn't my daily routine every morning. And it's really interesting, like looking back 5 years ago at that time. The stages of grief, I think we're all pretty familiar with those, the anger, sadness, depression, bargaining. What's interesting when you're actually living it is it's just a whirlwind where you're feeling all of these emotions all at once, every day, like all day, every day. I started experiencing like symptoms of grief, like memory loss. I was the type of person that could remember everything that was being said in a meeting like 6 months prior. All of a sudden, I couldn't even remember like what my daily to-do list was. I struggled with brain fog, like just telling a story, I would forget like the words to the simplest things. So I really thought that like my brain was deteriorating. And then I like kind of eventually just came to this like weird acceptance that I was going to die young. And just processing all of that was difficult, because when you're in the moment of all of it, this is all just like really, really depressing, and like your mind is always racing. Or I was like completely numb and I felt absolutely nothing. So I eventually had to lean into my support systems at work, I did try counseling shortly after he passed, but it flopped really hard. One thing about counseling is you kind of have to shop around for counselors that are a good fit. And I don't think that that's talked about unless you have that personal experience. The first counselor that I went to, there was nothing wrong with them. We just didn't click. And it ended up being more difficult, and it deterred me from pursuing it until 2 years later. So one thing that I knew that worked for me was learning something new. I decided after about a year that, I'm done wallowing. I need to just like pick up a new hobby or like take on a new work activity. And then I'm not even exaggerating. A year on the day of his death anniversary, on the 1 year anniversary, the first case of COVID came to North Dakota and the world shut down. So right as I was like, all right, I'm going to do better, I was more isolated than ever. I did turn to alcohol to numb my racing mind quite a bit, and because that was the easiest thing to turn to. But eventually I was able to reconnect with people. And so looking back at, what really helped me during that time was having a solid support system at work. And it's kind of been a big inspiration behind this series is how do we create that? I had a lot of coworkers that I considered really good friends, and they would let me sit down and talk through, what was going on and how I was processing everything. Even when it got really, really dark, they would just sit there and listen. They never tried to come in and fix it because there was no fixing it. So that was a huge, huge relief for me. I eventually did start to see a counselor that I clicked with. I got lucky. One of my coworkers had found a counselor through our EAP, and she recommended her to me, and she just happened to have an opening, and I was able to get in at a good time. So having that support system that can make those referrals to you can be a life changer for sure. Linda, I really liked how you talked about positive self-talk, because at the time I was not doing that. And I wasn't even aware of how bad it was. One time I had a random coworker who I wasn't close with came into my office, and I made some self-deprecating joke about, weight gain or whatever. And she stopped me and she was like, stop it. If you would never say this to like your own worst enemy, why is it okay that you're saying this to yourself? And at the time I was like so annoyed by it, because I was like, no, I just wanted to crack jokes and like laugh. And then I realized like, no, these jokes that I was cracking, it was a coping mechanism, but it wasn't a helpful coping mechanism. So I was able to really start to learn how to catch myself when I was like spiraling in those thoughts, and just simply ask like, is this helpful or is this hurtful? If it's hurtful, move on. And I think that that has really, really helped me adopt a more positive mindset that isn't the toxic positivity mindset, which I also greatly appreciate Linda talking about, because I'm not a fan of toxic positivity, but there is some validity there with recognizing when positive thoughts are necessary to get you out of this negative headspace and becoming one of those people that, sucks the life out of everybody else, which is the route that I was going down. During that time, I came across a curriculum on trauma-informed care, and I realized how much it resonated with my experiences. So that helped me really identify some of the physical symptoms that I was experiencing, and also just process everything that had happened to me. So that was really beneficial. And during my time in counseling, I decided to get tested for ADHD because my focus scene was garbage and non-existent. So I decided to get tested for that. Turns out I did not have ADHD, I had OCD. So understanding that was really beneficial. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it sent me in a little bit of a whirlwind for a hot second there when I was learning about, this whole new piece of myself that has always been there, but now all of a sudden it has a name, and I can recognize and identify like, oh, this weird ritual that I've always done is tied to this, and this is a coping mechanism for this. And so it was really, it really helped me just understand and self-reflect a lot more. And once again, like the biggest thing that helped me during that time was having that welcoming work environment. So I want to share some resources that I kind of used during that time, and bring us back to a positive front, especially after that really great presentation. I did use Headspace, and fortunately, I had started using it about 2 years before my dad's passing. I had a coworker who talked about meditation nonstop to the point that I was like, okay, this is annoying. And then one night, I don't know what happened, like just this meditation demon came over me and was like, you need to try meditating. And then I fell in love with it. So thankfully, I had some of those foundations in place that really helped me when I really needed it the most. But Headspace was a really great place to start. It had some wonderful introduction courses, and also I really like the narrators that they have in those apps. I also check out chakra meditations on YouTube if I'm looking for something that has a little bit more visualization. I'm a very visual thinker, and when I'm trying to fall asleep at night, it's nice to have some of those free apps or free videos available on YouTube. Journaling, I have gotten, journaling ebbs and flows for me. I have noticed that when I am stressed out and I'm trying to fall asleep and I can't fall asleep, journaling does help me calm my racing mind. So I try to tap into that whenever I realize that, I'm starting to feel a little bit more stressed, because it does help you just get it all out. And then it's like, okay, now I've got it out. I can just be at peace and try to get some sleep finally. One of my favorite games is Sandbox Coloring. It's like a little pixel coloring app that just helps me kind of decompress at the end of the day and also stay focused during meetings. If I'm in a long meeting, I'll often be coloring. So I swear I'm paying attention. If you guys ever see me looking down, I just need to focus on something while I listen. Another great thing that worked for me was a brain game called Elevate. I downloaded this because of my memory recollection was pretty much garbage. So I downloaded that to help kind of flex that muscle. And it also helped me improve my writing. I considered myself a decent writer at the time, but then I realized how much, how redundant I was. So that actually helped me in that aspect of my career that I wasn't expecting. I was just trying to help with my memory recollection. I also looked into Skillshare. It's a website where you can access pretty much videos to learn any sort of skill that you're interested in. I really like it because it has it like built down into categories. And when I was home for COVID, I decided to get into redecorating my house. So I decided that I wanted to learn more about like the theories of interior design and how to style. So I watched a lot of Skillshare videos to help guide me as I redecorated my house. Some other strategies, I tried to book massages and sometimes did those with Reiki. We'll learn a little bit more about that in a few sessions after this one. As I mentioned, lifelong learning. After I kind of exhausted all of the Skillshare and hobbies that I could handle at the time, I decided to further my education and decided to enroll in the public administration program at UND, and I graduate in the spring. That has been a big game changer for me, but also has added some stress to my life, but good stress in a way. And we've mentioned this before, the book What Happened to You by Dr. Bruce Perry and Oprah. Fantastic book. Please check that out. And Anderson Cooper also has a really wonderful podcast on grief. And one of my favorite episodes was his conversation with Stephen Colbert. And they provided some really great insight that actually resonated a lot with my experiences too. So if you're wanting to learn more, I think that that's a really great spot to start and learn more about it. If you guys have any questions or comments, please feel free to chime in. Hopefully we ended that more on a positive note. Thank you, Deanne. I appreciate that. Well, I hope like the biggest takeaways, I mean, of course, we want to share some resources and strategies for you, but also start thinking about, how can you connect to people, and also tell your own story and explain to people, oh, I may be having an off day because this may be it, and that's okay to be vulnerable. And yeah, we just hope that is helpful for you guys. Please take a moment to fill out the feedback. I do want to share too, if anyone's in Minot, tomorrow is the Recovery Reinvented Conference. It is completely free. It's put on by Governor Burgum and the First Lady. I went to it last year, and that's actually where I found the What Happened to You book and was given a free copy of it. So definitely check that out. It's in Minot at Minot State University. So our team will be there. Jessica in person or online. And yeah, we appreciate you guys being here today, and we hope to see you next week.